Hello, everyone. This is Mary Lurson, Executive Director of the NAMM Foundation, and thank you so very much for joining us here for our webinar, talking to your school administrators on why music education matters. It's so important in that you're gathered here today on this important topic as we understand, once again, the need for advocacy, especially during these unprecedented times. I hope most of all this finds all of you doing well. Thank you for your great work with music education, with students, families, your schools, and communities. We know how valuable your time is, and we're grateful that you're spending a little bit of it with us. Um, if you've joined us before on our webinars, we know we have to go around a little bit of an antitrust curve here. This is our formal statement about how NAMM conducts its meetings and its gatherings. We take this very seriously that we do not conduct a business regarding competitive pricing, and all this information about our formal policy is available at namm.org, and we invite you to review that. We also want to let you know that this event does not offer professional development credits, though that's something that we hope that we could possibly do in the future, even at our January Believe in Music event. And we'd be hoping to share more information with you about that as we go along. So I'm thrilled to be introducing you to our panelists. We're going to be having a discussion with two large school district superintendents, Cindy Martin of the San Diego Unified School District, Roger Leone of the New York City School District, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, two remarkable community leaders, school and community leaders that have joined us today. Then we'll be talking to some visual and performing arts leaders from across the country, Michael Stone from California, Dr. Heather Cody from the Westward Public Schools in Massachusetts, and Dr. Lance Nielsen from Lincoln, Nebraska. Again, a pretty good geographic representation. And then we'll be having, I like to call this the panel of experts, our great friends at NFME, Lynn Tuttle and Tushar Swine, will be reacting to the comments of our opening panelists and guiding us in terms of what we need to be doing as advocates for music and arts education right now and in the months ahead. So I'd like to turn first to our two panelists, the remarkable Cindy Martin of the San Diego Unified School District, and Roger Leone of the New York City Public Schools. Welcome. Are you both with us? There they are. Thank you. I hope you are all seeing them. I'd like to acknowledge too our wonderful friends at the Save the Music Foundation that introduced us to Roger Leone. Thank you so much, Chio and your team, and also Ann Fennell, who's a great friend of NAMM and NAMM Foundation, is now helping Cindy with the music education initiative there at San Diego. But we were so excited to have both of you on this conversation with us because we want to hear from the top of the house. We need to understand the mindset of a superintendent facing this time with their schools and their communities. And first of all, I want to acknowledge and thank you for your sincere and authentic work for your communities. We know that these are hard and challenging times for you as district leaders as you work with the complexities of the needs of your students. But you have been recognized by our community as really continuing to make sure that music and arts offerings are available to children during these times. So we'd like to just really kind of start out. Could you give us a quick thumbnail of each of your communities and school districts so our audience understands quote unquote who you're working for and who you're serving? Cindy, could we start with you in San Diego?
Sure. Nice to see everyone. I'll say good afternoon to my colleague Roger over on the East Coast. It's just getting to be afternoon here. San Diego Unified is the second largest district in the state of California. Los Angeles Unified is obviously the largest. And first of all, Mary, when you said that the community on this call has recognized my colleague Roger and I as leaders in arts and the work that we're doing, that to me is a high honor because the arts community is really important in education, and to us it's central and it's core. And so you think about San Diego Unified being large district, we're urban and suburban. We have high percentage of students that speak other languages, many different languages. We're a border city. We're close to the Mexico border, and high number of percentage of students that receive free and reduced lunch. Many of our low-income families have turned into no-income families during this crisis and pandemic. And so we're seeing the demography of the district change rapidly. Whether that's a long-term change or a short-term change, it's hard to see. That's the whole world is grappling with that. San Diego is definitely a tourism destination city, and tourism is highly impacted by the virus. So our demography has changed significantly. But what we have in San Diego is extreme high income families in one area of our district and extreme low income and everything in between. And all of the beautiful cultures and languages that are spoken in our district help to make San Diego a gorgeous tapestry. And the arts community here is just phenomenal.
And Cindy, we first were together when the John Lennon bus was in residence at one of the schools there in San Diego, just where things were starting to really sort of, ramp up and get consolidated in that energy. And it's just so great what you've done there. Roger, tell us a little bit about Newark, jumping to the other side of the country.
Thank you. Yes, we're coming to you from the East Coast. So a good hello to my friend Cindy, and I look forward to further communications with her and the great work that she's doing in San Diego. Mary and NAMM, I just wanted to first take this opportunity on behalf of obviously all of our students and my incredible arts director, Margaret Eel, who I know is joining us today. She has been masterful, and you've already given a shout out to the Save the Music Foundation and our good friends there. We're very appreciative of this honor. So Newark is the largest school district in New Jersey. We have 55,000, a little over 55,000 students. There are 36,000 students in the district schools, 19,000 students that are in our charter schools, parochial schools, and 2 of our private schools. We have an incredible early childhood program of over 7,000 students, of which the majority of those students are having their needs addressed at early childhood provider sites all throughout the city of Newark. The city of Newark has approximately 288,000 residents, and during the realities of COVID-19, I would just be remiss if I didn't say our staff and our parents have done an absolutely incredible job. As of this week, we are just short of 2 million meals that we've distributed to our students and their families, and approximately 5,000 to all of the residents in the city of Newark. And we're just extremely excited about this very important conversation today.
We all have to just pause for a moment and be mindful of the leaders that we're chatting to. The complexity of your time and the complexity and the strain that you are going through to solve these problems for so many. And I'm just lifted up by it, just hearing where you're sitting. And I just say thank you for your work. But we do want to say, why, as you've faced the complexities of this time, did you not deviate from your commitment for music and arts education for children during this complex time, when it maybe would have just been, to look at those resources or to look at that channel of assets in that curriculum area and say, well, we really have to pull those assets over to where, where they're quote unquote needed more. Cindy, would you like to start with that? Why again have you stuck with this priority for children through this time?
Well, Mary, we need arts now more than ever before. It's been a deep and abiding commitment since I've been superintendent. This is my 8th year. It's my 32nd year in education, and it's my 8th year as a superintendent here in San Diego. And I didn't give our numbers. We're about 105,000 students. And so you got all these numbers, you've got all these things that you have to do and grapple with. And like Roger just said, meal distribution and computer distribution, and close the digital divide on a dime, and actually not even on a dime because they didn't even give us a dime to do it. But we essentially had to do all of that, get up and running with distance learning. And so how do you remember keeping the main thing the main thing? We got $75,000 computers distributed in record time. We've distributed 5 million meals, the largest food relief effort here in San Diego. And so where do the arts fit into all of that? You could easily be distracted by computers and meals and distance learning and 18,000 hours of professional development getting teachers ready to take their craft online. And don't be distracted. Don't be distracted by all of that. And remember, the heart of our work is the human being and the human souls that are affected by this crisis. And one of my favorite quotes that is right here on my desk and it's guiding me through it is from Mo Willems that says, "Science will get us out of this, but the arts will get us through this." And we need to understand, how do you manage that so that the human spirit is nurtured, and that candle that burns bright in the souls of each of our students and our arts educators and our arts organizations, they hold the candle up. And we got to protect that flame, because that flame will go out with the winds that are blowing through right now. And so it's an analogy, but it's also something that's very important that you remember what matters most. And it's that human spirit, and the human spirit happens through the arts. That's where the expression, whether it's all of the visual and performing arts. And so for us, the commitment wasn't just, uh-oh, there's a pandemic, we better bring more arts in. That's an arts commitment through our long-term strategic plan, and our commitment to that. We double down on it and we lean into it. We don't say, oh, better put that on the shelf till the pandemic is over and then get that back off the shelf. That is our roadmap forward. That is our guiding light. That is our North Star. And for me, it's easy, although it's complex.
It's
I really
complex.
wanted to share that it's a really almost a twofold problem. Part of what I've been sharing in our school district and in our city, working with emergency management, is that sometimes when we're in a crisis, we are only worrying about what is occurring now. And then when the crisis has passed, we're not there to address the realities that pretty much could have been addressed along the way. So I see us in the music community actually having a twofold problem. First, anybody who's in remote instruction, how do you prioritize the arts at that point in time? And that's the realities of where we are today in the school district, is we're all remote. But then when we return to in person, although it would be a more like a new normal, the realities there is, how do you seize the time? I know that weighing on our superintendents across the country will be this whole idea, how do you schedule it? How do you actually maximize the time, knowing that you may actually have shortened days? So I do have a couple of wraparound services that are helping us, like the Save the Music Foundation, like the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, like the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra. We have been consumed by our partners at critical points in time, and obviously in the most neediest of times, like the realities right now. What is seeming to help us is we've launched on July 1 a 10-year strategic plan that really redefines and rebuilds a whole new educational system. And I have to share with you that arts are there. How can the superintendent of schools who learned how to play a recorder and a trombone in Newark schools say that the art, and in particular music right now, is not important to our children? In fact, to everyone who's listening and all of the incredible work that art and music teachers are in fact doing, we value you. We probably didn't need a pandemic to acknowledge this reality today, but you are needed far more than perhaps ever anyone knew.
You know, I guess it'd be easy for me to say you are two of the most enlightened school superintendents on this subject that I've had the pleasure of speaking to, but I also have a sense that you are gaining something that is sustaining you through this time, right? And, you know, would you both maybe like to talk about that a little bit? Roger, why don't we start with you?
Oh my goodness, you started getting me a little bit emotional. Obviously, you know, the realities of the pressure that are on leaders all throughout the country, in particular superintendents, is immense. We're shouldering it. Part of what we're doing in New Jersey is really providing assistance and supports throughout the state. And so we've created support groups of superintendents. New Jersey has 21 counties. I'm in Essex County, and my colleagues have been a sense of inspiration, strategizing, figuring out problems that I have are not my own problems, to know that we're sharing them. The fact that I'm meeting Cindy with regards to this work also affords us incredible opportunities. It has pushed us to realize that the way that we have seen our roles actually must be in fact redefined, and in a very good way nonetheless.
How about you, Cindy? How is it supporting you and helping you expand?
Well, Anne Fennell, who you mentioned at the beginning, and Russ Sperling are like right hand, left hand in huge support of just knowing that distance learning is challenging. It is not ideal for our students, but knowing what that team has created with their brilliant leadership, that we're giving kids access to something during distance learning through the arts. The arts are actually one of the things that can translate and really talk about creative ways to that online environment. So that inspires me, seeing what our kids are able to come up with. And for me, art is what sustains me. I still have a daily gratitude practice. I use photography. I'm not a professional photographer, but it's a hobby. So every day, I've done this for 10 years, but it's become more important now that I take a photo every day of something that I find to be beautiful. I share that. It helps me reflect. I connect to art and music on a daily basis, and I lean on the work of our arts educators and our arts organizations to uplift me, to inspire me, and to remember we are here for the whole child. And if we just focus on how do I get those computers and all of these complex things that we need to do, and I focus all on that, that's not where the inspiration comes from. We always have to remember as superintendents who we work for. And we work for our beloved community and our beloved children, and the entry into what sustains our families a lot of times is through the arts. And so it's what balances this all out.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You know, I want to jump to the question that I offered that I think might be able to help the folks that are participating with us, those that are might be not have the joy or the pleasure to work with someone, a manager that understands the value, doesn't have that experience or hasn't taken that journey. I'd love you to respond to someone that might be speaking to a principal or a superintendent that has ideas for this, that's going to be embedding music and arts learning, either be it hybrid or, you know, keep it strong in the in school, that simply says, you know, we simply can't afford it given all the student learning needs and core subjects. What, I mean, you know, as a superintendent, we know that you would not say that, but how can you help someone that might be hearing that from their management as they're trying to I think that would be a great help for our advocacy efforts. Cindy, do you have a thought about that?
I mean, if you want to be confrontational, which is not an approach I recommend, but I would say, how could you not afford it? But that doesn't always work when you say that to somebody who doesn't have money, because they don't. We are facing massive budget cuts, and there's more coming. And so where does it fit into the overall district strategic plan? And we are not going to turn our backs on students. And each state I know has a different approach to it. In our district, we have a full VAPA department with 4 managers, and we have our dance teachers, our music teachers, our theater teachers, our visual arts teachers. We've built a whole infrastructure around it. But if you want to go back to the core and you're reaching out to either a principal or a superintendent who just doesn't hold this as a priority, when you begin to show them what happens and how lives change through the arts. For me, when I was a principal at an inner city school here in San Diego, it was 1,000 students, 100% below poverty. And I had a supervisor at the time who was reading, writing, math, get the test scores up. It was all about guided reading and math. And I was about that. I'm a literacy specialist. That's my background. My personal background isn't the arts, it's in literacy, but I consider art literacy, math literacy, science literacy all encompassing. And so when I at the time had a supervisor that didn't actually think that that was number one priority because they needed to get the test scores up, it was 100% Title I school, 65% English learners. Instead of fighting it, I was showing and not telling. I showed what it looked like to integrate the arts on my campus. We had 1,000 students pre-kindergarten through 5th grade, and we built an arts integration curriculum we started with dance, and we integrated dance into literacy because she wanted the reading scores to go up. So what we did is we had dance for every grade level, every student, and they ended up doing a dance performance, but we integrated the literacy standards. And when my supervisor came and saw our students increase their English proficiency, increase their language proficiency, and learned the VAPA standards at the same time, that we integrated. So there are people in this world who need to see it to believe it. And those of you that are here with us today, you know how to believe something into being. I'm one of those people that I can believe it into being. But if you're working with someone who needs to see it, start with that. Show what are they trying to accomplish, and show how the arts are the vehicle to accomplish all that is good and right in public education.
Thank you so much. Could you say your line that's on your desk?
Oh, oh yeah, it's from Mo Willems, and it's science will get us out of this, but the arts will get us through it.
I think we need to have that a bit of a motto on all of our desks.
Tattoo on my arm.
Right. Roger, how about you? That question, and again, we are hearing this from our colleagues around the country. There's pressure. There's, people are anxious and strained. What do you think?
So I know that the folks on my end, when they heard Cindy talk about, you can go at it confrontational. That's not, perhaps the best way of going at it. I would wholeheartedly agree, but we are the East Coast. So confrontation is, I'm not trying to speak for the whole East Coast, nor do I want emails from everybody. I receive my own. But nonetheless, I think I would go at it from different approaches. And for the folks that are listening, um, obviously whichever works best for you. Assuming the best case scenario, we would have thematic units and project-based learning occurring in classrooms where it's already integrated into the curriculum, that the arts is a natural, concurring part of the incredible learning that occurs. If you have a leader that needs to be convinced that memorization, coordination, fine-tune auditory skills, teamwork, the whole concept of risk-taking, if you have to convince them that that's important, then they have no idea of how to value the arts. Part of our work with our 10-year plan in providing equity is to actually disrupt the system. And unfortunately, at some points in times, you have to do it in very, very thoughtful ways. So I would share, if anyone is in a dark space right now saying, this is not working in my school or school district, I would offer the following. If in fact you're not involved in thematic units and you cannot convince one of your colleagues to do that, then obviously focusing on doing different types of festivals, music festivals, dance festivals, imposing and creating different types of competitions. Even if the finances are not something that are in your purview to utilize, the fact that you can create a real nice certificate for a first place, a second place, or for students that are participating. We have young arts festivals, we have teen arts festivals. The whole idea of the greatness of the arts is going to be realized because the geniuses are already in your respective school or school district. They must be provided the opportunity. And you as teachers, if you're teachers listening, you have the responsibility to not only impress upon that student that they are a genius, and then impress upon the adults who surround you and them that you have geniuses with you. And so in the arts, it's the vehicle. You already have those skills. Do not allow whatever are your realities to prevent you from accomplishing your goals. And if in your inspiration, I would just share this with you. And I don't know why it took my administration 3 years to do this. Every school in the entire system has an art and music teacher in Newark schools today. And I am extremely proud of that reality. Hopefully it's not a different normal in your schools, but ultimately you are the answer to many of the problems that plague us. And I wish everyone obviously a lot of luck and continued success in the work ahead.
I think that both of you have taken us to a place where we haven't really been before. And I'm so grateful for what you've said, both of you. I think we will let you dim your cameras and do all the other things that I know are waiting for you in your offices. We'd love to have you stay with us and hear our next conversation, but we hope you'll join us again. This has been very, very inspiring. Thank you so much for your leadership and for your commitment. There's more I would love to ask you, and maybe we'll do that again another time, but thank you so very much. Cindy and Roger, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. We want to move to three remarkable school administrators that are working in the visual and performing arts area across our country. And I'd welcome Michael Stone from the Bakersfield City School District, and also very involved with the California Music Education Association and the National Association for Music Education. Dr. Heather Cody from the Westwood Public Schools in Massachusetts, and Dr. Lance Nielsen from the Supervisor of Music at the Lincoln Public Schools in Nebraska. Three very different circumstances currently. So first of all, I'd love to do a quick round robin with you. If you could share with our webinar audience kind of the situation in your community, the demographics of your school district. Are you virtual? Are you hybrid? Are you in person? So Michael Stone, why don't we start with you from Bakersfield?
Mary, Bakersfield City School District, as you know, is in our Central Valley, the San Joaquin Valley here in California. And we're a very diverse population, and our school district is a kindergarten through 8th grade school district with a separate high school district. We have some of these districts in California that are split in that kind of way. Our demographic with our 32,000 students is 88% of the students are living in poverty, defined by the federal standard of a family of 4 earning under $20,000 a year. So we have deep poverty in our district. We also have a student population who are at the same percentage, about 88% who are English language learners. But our district public school system supports the arts, and we do that through an equity-based support model. We put the resources where they need to be to serve all of the children in an equitable way. So we're very proud that through this pandemic, we have maintained our staffing for our arts teachers. We have modified our scope and sequence, but we are still following it. Our curriculum has pivoted a bit to some online resources and tools, as well as some new online curriculum for the school year, because we're 100% virtual learning right now, distance learning. We have plans in place for the hybrid and the full-time face-to-face when that time is allowed here by our public health officials in California. But that's a snapshot of Bakersfield City School District here in Bakersfield.
Thank you so much, and the best community for music education for many years, and carries that flag. Dr. Cody, love to hear from you in terms of your work in Massachusetts. What's your school district like?
Hi, Mary. So I'm going to be your small district representation here for those of you folks that are in smaller districts. So I am the Director of Performing Arts in Westwood, Massachusetts. We're about 45 minutes outside of Boston, so we're a suburban community, and we're a small town. Our district serves about 3,100 students between K through 12. I'm also the high school band director there, so I am teaching in this environment while I'm also administrating in this environment. We've got 5 elementary schools that feed into 1 middle school and then feed into the high school, which is where I'm stationed. And, you know, I'm so blessed to have an administration that is supportive of the arts, and I've got parents that are supportive of the arts, and we always have been that way, which is, you know, it's just wonderful. And we're still struggling through this, of course, like everybody is. We are in a hybrid model right now. So we've got a cohort that comes in on Mondays and Tuesdays. We have another cohort that comes in on Thursdays and Fridays, and then Wednesday we're fully remote, and we see all of the kids on that day. So we've got, you know, classes meeting in separate sections, which is definitely challenging. As we came into this, though, I think the biggest success, or the thing that, you know, was the most important to me, was that my staff was not laid off, and to say that we can do this. And that was from day one. That has been the approach that I've taken with my staff, that I've taken from my administration, and to get in front of it and say, yeah, it's going to look different, but we can do this. And I was assured that none of my staff would be cut. We've reallocated, we're designing things differently, but not losing staff was huge, because then we could get into the things that we need to be running, securing space, securing technology, you know, equipment, whatever it is that we need to do. But not losing you know, staff was the huge thing for me, and just saying that, you know, we can do this, it just looks different.
All right. Thank you so much. Dr. Nielsen, I think you're the one that can give us hope that things can be normal in this time.
Well, as normal as we can be. So yeah, I'm Lincoln Public Schools in Lincoln, Nebraska. So we're a community of about 300,000 people, and our school district has been growing in recent years up to about 42,000. Just last week, we had our student count for this year, and we have dropped by about 700 students. And we attribute that to a lot of parents deciding to keep their kindergartners out of school for another year. So that'll probably mean we'll have a huge kindergarten class next year. And then also a lot of families navigating to homeschooling. But we did start the year at 100% back for our elementary and our middle schools, and we are in an A-B schedule with our high school. So 50% of them are in the building at a time. And we did that because that was where our largest population was at this time, was in the high school. And so we had the biggest issues as far as being able to make all the protocols work. With that, families had an option to also keep their students at home and do the 100% remote learning. Now, that has created a challenge for our teachers because they're navigating by having students in front of them. We call them our roomies. And then we also have Zoom students full time. So that is a challenge to navigate between those two. But as far as the protocols, we have followed the guidance of our Lincoln and Lancaster County Health Department, which I was able to have direct conversations with them over the summer to develop our plan, which was great. We followed the guidance of the aerosol study from the University of Colorado. So we've moved our choirs to auditoriums so we could spread them out. Everybody must wear a mask. We have wind band instruments using the bell covers, 30-minute playing, singing, hand sanitizing, all that stuff. And we've been in school since August 12th, and we have not had any community spread in any of our buildings. Now, as a state, we're seeing cases rising here, and those are kind of attributed to things outside of our school systems. But we're confident if we stay with our safety protocols as we have it, we can maybe stay on this path. So we've had some success in being able to have the students in school and doing music.
Wow. It's so important to our audience that our conversation is just not about one type of school district, right? I mean, our conversation is sharing among a network. And, this is an advocacy conversation. So the question to the three of you is, when all of this, quote unquote, went down, right? When all this was starting to just, feel like, first, I think we all thought it was going to be a couple of weeks. We'd all go in and do a deep cleaning of the schools, right? And then, gradually, I mean, we went through it at NAMM. We think, well, we might have to, delay or postpone something, but we might be able to do something else later, right? It was just this reality sort of came over us. But in that process, did you have to have direct conversations with school administration? I mean, were there moments where, things were being divided up and considered relative to the intensity and the seriousness of what had to be accomplished for students? And I would like to hear about that and what you said. Michael, you nodded your head. That had resonance with you.
Mary, I think what was most inspiring to me myself is that principals said to me, Mike, what do we do? This became an opportunity to really guide the protocols that were set up for our new distance learning that we were forced into that we knew nothing about. Very few of our teachers had Google Classroom in place when this happened. And then we saw innovation from our teachers. And I really saw my role in the period March through May as being a conduit to communicate with the site principals, with the district superintendent and administration about the great work that was going on by the teachers in their new virtual classrooms. Let's be honest, it was not perfect, especially the first 3 or 4 weeks. We were somewhat stunned by the circumstances. But now that we are into the fall semester, students are learning. We have protocols and systems in place to ensure that that learning is taking place. And Dr. Cody has said this before, the way we're teaching may be slightly different, but the what of what we do, how we teach is different, but the content's the same. We're still teaching kids music. And that's really our role as arts leaders, I believe, is to ensure that that learning continues unmitigated throughout this entire process of the pandemic.
So Michael, just to dig a little bit deeper into that, and because I know you and I can ask you the question, right? So in that process, there was never a kind of a moment where the administration said, I'm just not sure this is going to work, or we have our, I don't, was that ever?
It's interesting, Mary, that conversation happened after the panic had worn off and we're in the first 3 weeks of school. And then the phone rings and the principals are questioning well, my children are behind in their core content. How can I have them going out to a pull-out music program? The response that I gave was that we have 1,200 minutes of instruction that's happening in the synchronous asynchronous model for every week, 240 minutes a day, and I'm asking for 40 minutes for one pull-out a week. And when the chart that I made was shown to principals, they immediately said, well, that's really reasonable. I understand. But there was more pushback, at least in my world, when we started this fall term, rather than back in the early months of the pandemic. But I will say that principals, for the most part, just simply want guidance. A lot of them said to me, Mike, how do I do this? And again, that was an opportunity to restructure what we needed to for the student learning.
That's very helpful. How about you, Dr. Cody? When in your district, as the realization of this became really, this was a longer term, right? Was there ever a sense that there could have been some changes, or that the time and resources that were devoted towards music maybe had to be stretched and pushed to other things, and you had to work a little harder?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what Michael said. When we pivoted in March, it became okay, here's what we have to do. So let's figure out how to do it. And Mike and I are very good friends, and we use the word opportunity all the time. And that's kind of how I live my life too, my professional life. It's, well, if I can't do this, then how do I do it this way? What door opens if this door is closing? And so in the spring, we were really, on the seat of our pants, just kind of figuring out what that looks like and what it could look like to get through. So harder conversations happened over the summer when we were trying to build a schedule for the fall. And the biggest challenge I had with administrators in my district, and as I said, I'm in a very supportive district and was surprised that I had to have these conversations, but you had to, was in scheduling. And it was so different at the 3 different levels. I teach at the high school. My high school ensembles had no issue being scheduled because of just the type of schedule that we run. It was never a conversation that we're not going to have the arts. Of course, we're going to have the arts. Middle school got a little bit wonkier because just, again, the type of schedule is tougher, and elementary was the most difficult. And I had an elementary principal in a meeting this summer say, well, band and chorus can't happen. And I was like, wait a minute, no, let's talk about how that can happen. And it ended up being kind of what Michael was saying there too. They finally threw it to me too, to say, we don't know what we're doing, help. And that was hugely important. But that's relationships I've built too with those administrators where they were comfortable saying that to me, and I was comfortable coming back and being able to say, let me help with this, and is it perfect? No. Have we had stumbles along the way? Yes. I'm still figuring out some elementary things, but our programs are up and running, and we're different than Lance was in terms of playing and singing. We can't play and sing inside by Massachusetts Department of Ed. So even with the results of the Colorado study, we're hoping that turns around, but we're reinventing music, theater, and the arts in a world where we can't actually do it inside yet.
Yeah, and thank you for speaking, both of you and Michael, speaking so frankly about the fact that, there were some speed bumps and you had to do some convincing. Along the way with our webinars, we've talked about that, that fail-safe. When you're really confused, you say, or even when you're not confused, you say, how can I help? How can we figure this out together, right? It sounds like you are all experts at that. From Lincoln, Nebraska, Dr. Nielsen, were there obstacles as problems were being solved for music and arts education along the way that in terms of, trying to use that time and resources to quote unquote what maybe matters more in the minds of administrators and the pressures that they were going through? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Very little, to be honest with you. We did have a few administrators that were hearing, remnants of this aerosol study, and they were hearing that singing is bad, we can't do that. And so then they were questioning whether we're going to be able to do that or not. My colleagues here in the curriculum area in visual art and drama, and then also PE and computer science, we all started working on our back to school plan together. And really, we started off just to be proactive. Why are we important? This is why we need to be in the school day. So the first 9 pages was really about advocacy for us. And really, once we started getting into June, a lot of our executive team says, hey, you have a great plan. but it's really big. You really don't need to talk about these first 9 pages. You're not going anywhere. So, so we kind of just eliminated the first 9 pages and got into the nitty gritty of here's what we have to do to make it work in our classroom. So
After you gave them the 9 pages.
that's right. They had the 9 pages.
Right? After you gave them the 9 pages. So you had to go back to the basics a little bit, right? We are here to, especially what students are going through now, why this is so important. And again, I hope that as you're participating with us, we really do have a theme, for this webinar. It's how do we at this point in time have the courage, the resilience, the determination, the body of research, the relationships, and and the nimbleness and the quickness to go forward and to solve these problems with our administration, because it sounds like the 3 of you have done some pretty remarkable work. Final thoughts about that, Dr. Cody?
It's so true. You have to be proactive. Like, if we're talking about advocacy and you're talking about, I think about the last 6 months and what we've all gone through with this. And, a lot of why I'm having some success in my district was partially the work I had done before. I talk with teachers, I talk to teachers all the time who will say, oh, I'm just happy in my classroom. I don't need anybody coming in. I don't want to, take it out of there. You can't do that. And we're learning that right now. You have to make your program visible. You have to show folks why you're important. You have to show them what you're doing so that they value you. And that's one of the things that I think we will come out of this that we need to think about going forward is, how are you doing that every day? Yeah, we're doing things different right now, but I'm outside with my high school band every day with kids on Zoom and kids in front of me, and we're playing outside, and people are walking on the track behind us and clapping as we finish doing stuff. This is how I'm keeping my program, visible out there. But we need to think about that and think out of the box, accept that things are not the way they were. And I know for me, that was really hard. It was really hard to hit an acceptance point where I had to say, okay, this is not going to look the same. And, how do we move forward? But to think out of the box and accept this is a little bit different, but what can we do with it? And I think one of the biggest things for me is just kind of a final thing is using your students to advocate for your program. I do this all the time now. And my best thing happened the first week we were in when my little senior trumpet players came in and she sat down outside in her chair with her trumpet and she's looking around and we're all 10 feet apart because that's what we have to be. And she looks at me and she says, this is the happiest I've been in months. Like, this is why we do it. That is who we're doing it for. And those kids can help you in your advocacy.
Oh, that's so inspiring. Thank you so much. Michael, how about you? And have you used that best community designation to remind people of what really matters there too?
I've placed it in my signature on my email, so everyone sees it whenever I send them a message. So yes, the best community recognition has been a major factor in advocating in a positive way throughout the school year. So thank you to NAMM and the NAMM Foundation for that. I would say, and Mary, you used the word nimble. I think right now we're all making plans for the next step. In my case, it's coming back hybrid or coming back 5 days a week sometime in the future, hopefully sooner than later. And that's taking a lot of time to make multiple plans and be ready to pivot one way or the other. But the last thought that I have for all of those who are watching and listening is that we have to really provide grace to one another during this time. I know I have teachers who are feeling a lot of stress from the new technology, from the fact, one of the facts that I think about often is they're spending more time planning now than they did last year because everything's new. If you're like me in the 32nd year in the profession, you are starting from ground zero. I was with a young substitute music teacher yesterday getting him orientated, and there were 2 administrators in the room and 2 coaches just helping the teacher get his feet on the ground with the technology. So we have to be patient and kind to one another, and optimism is key because it is difficult and we don't want our teachers to have extra stress. We want to nurture their relationships and help them be effective for the kids.
Thanks so much, Michael. And just a note about Best Communities, we will be coming out with a special pandemic version that will reflect some of the realities of our school districts, but we're continuing with that. And we think the noble work that's been done by school districts in this time needs to be recognized. So we hope you spread the word. So Lance, helping us close out this section before we move to our NAFME panel of experts, in terms of your final thoughts about how we stay engaged with our school administration, how we stay advocating. And we got a wonderful note here from in the chat. People would love to see your 9 pages. So they'd love to see how you outline that rationale. So if you'd love to share that, we can share that with folks here. So your final thoughts about this.
Well, I heard someone say this one time, and maybe it was you, Mary. I'll give you credit regardless. Advocacy is a wellness program, not an emergency room visit. And boy, we are living that right now. And so we are also a best community for music education. And what I always did with that was really recognize the community, because I think we really got to engage our community in supporting the arts. And give you 2 real quick examples of how that has helped us. When we started the school year, we wanted to get all these bell covers for all of our instruments. And so we reached out to the community, and we had an overwhelming amount of people who just donated and created these little bell covers. And we got just thousands of them, which was wonderful. And also our University of Nebraska, our colleagues down the street, as all of us were going to be heading into some budget cuts. And they announced early in September that the dance program was on the chopping block. And, you know, as LPS, we do a lot of collaboration with University of Nebraska. So we reached out, showing our support, the community showed support, and it was just announced on Tuesday night, they're keeping it. They found the funding, they found what they needed to do to keep it going. There's where community advocacy is so important, engaging the community in what we do.
Thank you so much. I'm going to add, Dr. Cody, what did the trumpeter say when she sat down in the chair?
This is the happiest that I've been in months.
Let's remember that, right? And that's the reason that we go back to the mat and we go back to the meeting and we write those 9 pages and we go to a meeting and right? And when 2 or 3 people are gathered together, you can have an arts coalition. Let's remember that. We thank you so much for your inspiring words. Really great. We're going to, this is called an audible, I guess. We were going to have some breakouts, but we're not going to have those breakouts because this conversation has been so meaningful and so important. And I encourage you to engage on the chat if you have questions. Because again, we've just had such a rich conversation, and I think we're learning a lot here. So, and I do feel kind of like the meet the press moment here, where I turn to the panel of experts when we invite Lynn Tuttle and Tushar Swain to join us. These are colleagues in the public policy realm. We get to talk to each other occasionally about things that no one else really wants to talk about in terms of how policies and but I so value the collaboration and so grateful to have you on the call today. So your job here just today is help us synthesize and help us understand what we need to do, right? So what did you hear in these 2 remarkable conversations in terms of you know, why music education and arts education is really more important now than ever? What is our rationale beyond that great comment from Dr. Cody's trumpet player? What are students telling us that we need to be the reason that we're doing this work now? Lynn, you want to start?
Oh, thanks, Mary, and thanks for having us on. And what amazing speakers you had before us. It's awfully hard to synthesize all that great thinking. What we're hearing, right, is that this, just as before the pandemic, now this is all about what's good for students. And music and the arts are good for students, and it's central to what's going to get us through this, how our students are going to excel and be taken care of at this moment in time and into the future. And we heard that from both of the fabulous superintendents as well as from the great music program leaders, right? So as you're doing these advocacy conversations with your administrators, always bring it back to what's good for students. And how does it tie back to the whole child, as Dr. Martin said from San Diego? How does that fit into the strategic plan and the mission and vision and values of your school district? As as the fabulous superintendent said, from Newark, as Roger said. And I love also what Dr. Nielsen said about community-centered, right? This is about what's good for the community, how the community connects with and how we make community through music, as Dr. Cody talked about her band being out there, being seen every day while they're practicing in a socially distanced and safe way. So I think all of those are kind of key to that conversation of bringing it back to students, that our communities value this, and that we've already talked about this. Hopefully you've already done this in your school districts and put the arts central to the strategic plan and to the long-term vision of what the school district is meant to do.
And if you don't have a strategic plan, this is a good time to sit down and make sure you have one.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
know, in other words, there's no deficits here, right? There's where you are, the relationships that you have, the ones that can be expanded and deepened for truly what student needs now, right? I think it's important to know the boundaries are really don't exist. It's where you are, you start now and you go forward.
Absolutely.
Tushar, what are your thoughts about what you've heard from these great people today?
Well, I mean, certainly, you know, the experts are the ones who spoke before me. But you know, I think the one thing that I heard is just how crucial advocacy is, and you know, whether it be Lance or Mary's advocacy as a wellness program quote, or listening to Heather talk about the relationships that she had built before this point obviously is incredibly important, because if you you know, if you're not at the table, you're lunch. And you have a lot of you know, great examples of advocacy at the local level here. Like I said, it's never too late to begin to build those relationships.
You know, so much time in what's the opener for advocacy, right? The opener for the opening line for your advocacy is, I've counseled many people about it. I'm very concerned about our students.
Yep.
And their opportunities. That I think if we thought about a few things differently, we could, right, fill in the blank, as opposed to you know, starting with the deficit part of it. You're starting with the student need and the genuine concern. And I found that to be, in talking to people, so kind of liberating. In other words, you don't see then that the budget obstacle, you don't see the schedule obstacle, you don't see the attitudes of certain people that don't agree, that obstacle. You're going right to the reason that we're all there in the first place, right, is for the student needs. We do know, though, that we are hearing that teachers, the music teachers are being challenged in some ways, that they're not in their teaching in their primary areas, or they're asking to, you know, spread out and do things to meet the needs for virtual or hybrid learning. Lynn, how is that being addressed by various people that are encountering that, and how are they, again, expressing their advocacy point of view?
So again, I'm thinking to the fabulous program leaders that we've had on, and to what Heather shared about. So, you know, in the state of Massachusetts, they were told that they couldn't make music together, right? That it was considered too dangerous, regardless of what the aerosol research study results were saying or other guidance coming out. And yet she's still able to do music with students. It's just different, right? They're going to respond, they're going to compose, they're going to do those things together in person. And so being creative, being innovative, being present in those conversations, saying, well, can we think about it differently? So being, you know, leaning into what we've said for years, right? That music and the arts help develop the creative muscle in our students. We're getting to practice with that creative muscle now as educators. And so as these concerns get raised, what can you do? What can you offer instead? How can you think about innovations? How can we share the models that we've heard today so that you can bring examples from other places that may have worked? In fact, just the other day I was on with talking to a teacher in Connecticut where, again, her administrator is very skeptical about singing, being able to sing indoors, even if socially distanced. So not only did I share the aerosol study, but I shared the great work that Dr. Nielsen had been doing in Lincoln, and the fact that they've been together for 10 weeks and that they were using protocols that had kept the students safe. And I said, I'm happy to put you in touch with Dr. Nielsen so you can learn what those protocols and guidance are. So sharing with each other, sharing the models, and continuing to be innovative and creative and problem solvers, as Dr. Cody said so beautifully earlier.
How about you, Tushar?
Well, yeah, I obviously agree with everything that Lynn said. I think from, also from an advocacy standpoint, we've certainly had some successes with music education advocates in Ohio, working with the governor on releasing some NAFME COVID-19 guidance. Certainly, whenever we had heard about Maryland's guidance, potentially talking about moving music educators into other fields. We know that our Maryland MEA was active in trying to fix that issue. And then obviously as a public policy person, I'd be remiss to say about a month out, less than a month out before election, that elections obviously matter. We think that, the presidential election has been billed as potentially the most important one of our lives, and that might, very well be true, but there are also numerous state and local elections as well, right, that are going to help dictate your education policy going forward. So I'd certainly, advise you to be informed, as informed as you can be on that front as well.
What a great civics lessons to have your high school band students actually dial up some school board candidates and ask them what their position is on the arts education in the
Absolutely.
school. Anyone wants to do that, we have a format for that, which is nonpartisan, non-threatening, and something we'd be happy to share with you. So NAFME, wonderful organization, great partner to NAMM Foundation. So grateful for all of you. What resources can you download for everybody? You've got wonderful things waiting to be used. Happy to have you share.
Great. So I'll start, and Tushar, you'll remember all the ones I forget, I'm sure. So Tushar just took us through a little, civics reminder. We have a civics action field guide. So if you want to learn about and think about, who is it that you get to directly elect and how do they connect to public education in your school, in your district, in your state, feel free to make use of that. If you are new or even just want a refresher in terms of building your own local advocacy action plan, we have a tool that can help you take you through step by step, and many thanks to our fabulous President-elect Scott Sheehan, who helped us put that puppy together a couple of years ago with Tushar's help. Again, we've been referencing the aerosol research study that NAMM Foundation has supported so generously over the last year. We've been putting out some fall 2020 guidance that relates back to that, to think about how you could step up in-person, distance, hybrid examples of how music instruction can continue, regardless of the type of fall you might be finding yourself in. And we're really fortunate that we've had some great leaders in the field from our Council of General Music Education and an early childhood special research interest group to come out with variations for general music guidance as well as early childhood guidance. And those are all now available on our website.
Thank you so much. And before we go to our wrap-up segment, we've got a great question in the chat about when music teachers and the VAPA coordinators are essentially not invited to the table. They're just not participating. How do we, or they're not they're not invited to decisions. Decisions are being made for them. Lynn or Tushar, can you, that's a really important question that we don't want to go unanswered. How is the best way to deal with that? Is this when you take a bunch of parents to a school board meeting? Is this when we actually have a coalition meeting and invite the superintendent to join us? More visible? What are your thoughts about that?
Tushar, I'll let you go first.
No, I think what Mary's saying is exactly right. It's obviously, it is not easy, it's nerve-wracking, it's uncomfortable, but to the extent that you are able to gather a coalition of people to attend your school board meetings, to attend your PTA meetings, to just set up meetings, to talk to your administrators, all of that, again, seems uncomfortable and tiring, and at times like you're not going to make progress, but it really does help. So certainly keep at it.
Yeah, these are times when you feel, well, why aren't we included? Well, you got to get over that and then get to work.
Yeah.
Right.
And build
Right.
those relationships for the long term. That's what it's all about.
And have the conversations that we're missing something that is vital for students, but we know that it feels very it doesn't feel right that you weren't included, because you are an equal a part of that environment, that teaching environment. So thank you so much again, and I thank to the NAMM team for being so nimble here, because we've completely changed our run of show, but for all the right reasons, because these conversations were so great. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Tushar. Thank you, Lance Nielsen, who did put his document in the chat. That's wonderful. Michael Stone, thank you so much and Dr. Cody, and of course, Cindy Martin and Roger Leone. What a remarkable conversation with all of them. I want to tell you what is coming up for us. We want to make sure that you're keeping the week of January 18 in mind relative to NAMM's Believe in Music Week. The elements of that are all coming into shape. We do have some more fall webinars happening this month. October 13th, we're back to our music and social justice topic with a case study of how an organization built very intentionally a diversity and inclusion alliance from the board down through the community. Very interesting story to share. October 22nd, our college music students and faculty will be coming together to talk about what's ahead for them if they choose a career in music. And we'll end the month with a bit of health and wellness. And along the way, I think we'll have a nonprofit town hall coming on too. Again, please stay tuned to NAMM and NAMM Foundation as we flesh out our program for Believe in Music Week, the week of January 18, 2021. We really do need to kick off the new year together with the resounding belief in music. And now I would invite you to stick around for the next 90 seconds, and we would love to share with you a new animated video that we've prepared, knowing that a lot of schools cannot be hosting back to school or instrument drives for the fourth graders. We've got a lovely little whiteboard animation, which is available for any of you to use. It's at NAMM Foundation YouTube. So we'll end with a little bit of a story about why it's always the right time to learn an instrument. Thank you so much for joining us, and continue to be safe and well. Thank you.
My name is Julie, and I have been playing an instrument for 3 years now. I love being a musician. I'm always learning something new about music, people, and myself. Music isn't just dots on a page. It's alive. And by playing music, I accomplish something every day. I love the people who've helped me. My instructor is awesome. She teaches me and my friends. I'm glad she was there to help me keep playing, because at first, I didn't like practicing. I'm happy I did though, because learning to play makes me feel like I can do anything. But the best part is it's fun. It makes me feel better when I am sad, angry, or even bored. I can play alone or with others, in my room, outside, or in class. I can even play with people over the computer wherever they are. When we're singing and playing together or learning from our teacher, there's something else happening too. It's like our worlds are connected. I have made a lot of friends that I wouldn't have without music. It's helped me learn something about myself, something I get to share with people the rest of my life. Making music is fun, and honestly, making music makes me, me. So don't wait. It's always the right time to learn an instrument.
Thank you, everybody. Be sure you download this video and share it widely. And thank you so much for all that you're doing every day to keep music education strong. Take good care.